Political Capital is brought to you by Uber Canada. Learn how Uber and Mad Canada are reducing impaired driving at uber.com/home soon.
CHEK Podcasts.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Political Capital, your source for all the latest in BC politics. I'm your host, Rob Shaw. Thank you for joining us this week. The legislature on its second spring break week, but nonetheless, our political cup runneth over with news stories. Very busy time in BC politics. We're going to bring in the pod squad this week to help us break all this down. Jeff Ferrier, Angelo Isidorou are here. Jillian is still away on spring break. She'll be back next week, but we're going to hold the fort up without her. Thank you to both of you for being here. Let's begin with news out of the blue for us in the public that Richmond Centre MLA Hon Chan has been charged with assault by choking, and uttering threats in what is believed to be a intimate partner violence case. The news came out after Chan was arrested on Tuesday and charged in court. The BC Conservatives immediately removed him from caucus. The NDP came out and said Chan should immediately resign his seat in the House. Let us begin on that point. I guess the political kind of reaction here, being removed from caucus. And then also, let's just start with this question. Jeff, I'll start with you. Should Hon Chan resign at this point, as the NDP is calling for, or what should happen here, do you think?
I think Hon Chan should absolutely resign his seat. I was glad to see Trevor Halford come out and remove him from the BC Conservative Party caucus. Would have been good to see him call on Mr. Chan to resign his seat, and same with the BC Conservative leadership candidates. Haven't seen that yet. The crimes that are being referenced, the alleged crimes, and I'm just in general, these sorts of crimes are intimate partner violence, vile, heinous, repulsive, cowardly crime. He's not been convicted. He has his day in court. He has the presumption of innocence. That's all important. Some people are calling for his removal, his resignation, because of the nature of the crime. For me, the bigger issue is, given that presumption of innocence, the fact that this will be a cloud hanging over his head, distracting him from his duties, bringing dishonor to the role that he serves as the representative for people from Richmond Centre. And on that basis, I think he should resign. He should resign while this court allow the court proceedings to proceed as they will, and if he is exonerated, run again in the next election. But he shouldn't be taking that seat in the legislature. He should be gone.
Just to flip it back, and we'll bring you in a second, Angelo, but just to flip it back on you, Jeff, what if he's innocent? What if he did not do this? What if people are charged incorrectly, or I mean, should an MLA resign when they're charged, or should they resign when they're convicted? Or it kind of feels like he hasn't had his moment in court, I guess, even though the charges, I agree with you, are heinous against him. Is that not convicting him in a way to demand he sort of resign?
I think that there's a high standard for people who serve in the Legislative Assembly. I think he has the right to have his day in court. I think, though, that this is going to be a huge distraction for Mr. Chan. It's going to take his focus away from the work he's supposed to do. He just does not have the capacity now, with these alleged crimes hanging over his head, to do the work that he has to do to be a good legislator in the House. And for that reason, I think he should resign. It's over and above the actual alleged crimes. It's the fact that, how do you serve with all of this hanging over your head and it occupying all your focus and time?
Yeah. Okay, Angelo, let's bring you in here. What do you think on the call for Hon Chan to resign?
Well, just listening to both of you chat, I mean, I'm still taken aback by the entire situation. These are incredibly serious charges. And for those watching, it's assault and uttering threats in regards to an incident that happened a few years ago. He was questioned by police last year about this, and none of us were aware. Ultimately, a special prosecutor has been appointed, and understandably, there's a threshold that needs to be met for something like that to happen. It's exceedingly difficult to conduct your duties of an MLA in this situation. I mean, what I think about is his constituency office. Is he going to be able to perform those duties? I mean, to me, this is all a shock because I didn't know Hon incredibly well. I've seen him here and there, and it's taken me quite aback and taken all of us quite aback. There is a presumption of innocence in our system, but this is going to take some time to go through and figure out whether he's innocent or guilty. So the reality is it's his decision, but I think it is very exceedingly difficult to perform these duties. It's going to be very difficult for him and his constituents.
Mm-hmm. Let's go around again on a different part of this. We learned when the charges were laid this week that, and Angelo, you've alluded to this, that there has been a police investigation and a special prosecutor in place for almost 9 months for Hon Chan. He has been sitting in the legislature voting on things, talking about law and order in some cases, and no one knew that he was under police investigation or a special prosecutor had been appointed. In the past, the disclosure publicly that there's a special prosecutor before charges are laid has been a pretty common thing. We've seen cabinet ministers have to step down from cabinet while a special prosecutor has been in place. So I just want to go around again, Angelo, we'll start with you here. Should the public be told when a MLA is under investigation by police before any charge decision has been made, like it's been in the past, or is this new system that we don't even get told until or if charges are laid? Is that the right balance, do you think?
I think the public should be told, right? If for nobody else than the constituents. Again, I go back to what is the purpose of an MLA outside of debating in the House and pushing legislation? Well, you actually serve as a public servant in your community. People walk into your office and say, hey, I need help with X, Y, and Z, and you are there to help them in a very privileged position. So I think that there is a duty to the government or the body responsible for this to let the public know what's going on. Certainly, at least let the official opposition know so they know what's going on. This was a total blindside.
Jeff, what do you think about that issue? We've seen, cabinet ministers like Ginny Sims, for example, special prosecutors announced she resigns her cabinet post, spends 6 months waiting. The special prosecutor says we're not going to proceed with charges. Sometimes it's taken up to 3 years. I've seen cabinet ministers under that cloud. Does the public, should they know when a special prosecutor is appointed, or in this case, should we just find out at the end if and when charges are laid, do you think?
I think special prosecutor appointment is something that should be made public. These things don't happen unless there is a incident that meets a high threshold for it being investigated. As much as I want the special prosecution office to pick a lane on these things and apply the same standard to everyone, let's not forget the onus that was on the candidate to be open and honest and transparent. He was vetted by the party. You would think that he would come forward and disclose these issues at that time. He didn't. You would think he would disclose to the opposition that the special prosecutor investigation was underway. That was 9 months ago, and he didn't. So as much, the special prosecutor should have made it public, but also the MLA, who's the subject of it, should have made it public, at least to the official opposition. And at that time, I think it would have been appropriate for him to resign then for the reasons that we've discussed already. Yeah,
it certainly does fall on Hon Chan to tell his colleagues that the police are interviewing him at some point. That's not, we don't need a public notice for that, but I've covered many special prosecutor cases over my career, and just not telling the public that it's happening I'm not sure that increases public confidence or in the system, which is designed to put a private lawyer on top of a police investigation into a politician to enhance public trust, avoid the perception of that the government might be influencing this. Making it secret does very little, I think, to enhance that public trust. So we'll see where this goes, and we'll see what Mr. Chan does. If he does resign, there could be a by-election in Richmond Centre. We'll be talking about the implications of that, what that means for government in the future as well. Okay, we'll take a quick break here. I want to come back afterwards and talk about developments on the DRIPA file and amendments coming up on that. We will discuss that right after this. Welcome back. We are going to jump into the issue of amendments to the Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act. We've talked a lot about it over the last few months. We're waiting for these amendments to land in the House, but this week the Canadian press got their hands on some of the changes with a leak. All sorts of little technical changes, removing words like must align and putting in priority legislation and ongoing process, tweaks to the wording here to try and accomplish what Premier David Eby said will be creating a law that can't be used by the courts to strike down other laws in response to a court ruling in December. So let's just start with that, Jeff. The DRIPA amendments, we don't know what's in them. We haven't seen them, but we have seen this leak. Is the government on the right path here? Is this going to accomplish the things that the Premier has publicly said he wants to accomplish? And what did we learn, if anything, from this coming out this week?
Yeah, well, I'll want to hear from the lawyers on if this actually achieves the Premier's aims, and I don't pretend to be a legal expert in that regard. On the politics, though, I think what the Premier is doing here is going to make First Nations wary and in opposition to some of the changes that will be made. And I think on the other side, for the farther right that is really focused on the anti-reconciliation agenda, it won't go far enough. And so if you're a politician of the center left, being able to come up the middle on that is not a bad place to be. And that's I think where the Premier hopes to go at the end of this.
It feels like, Angelo, no one's going to be happy with this, as Jeff sort of said. You have an entire Conservative leadership campaign that seems united on scrapping DRIPA. You have First Nations, on the other hand, saying these amendments are insulting. They take government backwards on reconciliation. Whatever words he puts in this, I don't know how to, what political element is the Premier in because of this, do you think?
Well, we shouldn't pretend that this is an easy enough issue where there is an outcome where everyone is happy. It is an exceedingly complicated issue. So I would give him that. I think the larger issue here is transparency. We just talked about that in the last segment. I think it's very difficult to achieve reconciliation without transparency. And what we see here is new proposed amendments or changes that we don't even know about, that the general public doesn't know about, that the official opposition has not been briefed about. And even many First Nations are under non-disclosure agreements, so they can't even opine about the merits of these changes. So I don't know how the NDP can move forward with trying to fix this problem, which in reality, I think, the Conservative position is that DRIPA should be repealed in its entirety. But if they're going to try to amend things, they have to address an issue that they have ongoing as a government, which is a lack of transparency to the public.
Mm-hmm. I think that is a good point, Jeff. We've seen that as the through line on the Heritage Conservation Act, the Land Act changes, like this idea that some of the backlash here is that parts of the public feel like municipalities, mayors, businesses, industry, mining, that they are left out of all of the discussions until the end when they're presented with this sort of fait accompli on something that impacts their business or life, and no one asked them about it. Is the government in that same position here? I know it's legislation, it's cabinet confidence, it's all of these technical things, but is there a risk that, as Angelo said, that through line continues on this?
Yeah, I think it's perfectly normal for a government to consult people who are directly affected by legislation on the legislation, proposed wording of legislation before it comes before the House. And I think the antecedent of the BC Conservatives, the BC Liberals would have done this probably in every single piece of legislation that was ever brought forward. This is absolutely, totally, completely a secret thing, except that the bill will be brought before the legislature and it'll be published on the website. So everyone will be able to see that before any decisions are made. And it's completely secret, except that there will be an opportunity to debate this issue in the legislature, which you can watch on TV or online, or you could read the Hansard transcript of the debates. It will go to committee, not a secret committee, a public committee for clause by clause review. And the final votes will be made on the public floor of the legislature. And again, if you want to watch that on TV or get your reports about it on CHEK, you can. So I find this, the secrecy narrative is a bit of a canard because everyone knows that the way that a bill becomes a law is in a public process that everyone can be part of. And so it will be with this one.
And yet, Angelo, just to close off on this, once the bill lands in the House, it's not like it's changing. It's not like, I mean, I guess theoretically it could, but it's kind of done at that point. Like, here it is, or we got a majority, you're going to pass it. The process is sort of kind of near the end, I think.
Yeah, I think so. It's not collaborative. So I see Jeff's point, which is, it's still cooking in the oven and we're going to present it. But what if British Columbians don't want to eat what you're cooking? I mean, I think this is a pressing issue. I think the more time that goes by, the legal framework becomes even more complicated. So rather than presenting, hey, we're government, this is what we've come up with, I think the government needs to be more collaborative in finding a solution.
Yeah. If you don't want to eat what you're cooking, if you can smell what you're cooking, there's a whole bunch of lines, Jeff. I'm not gonna do them. We're gonna go to commercial break instead. Coming up after this, we're gonna talk a bit about a shakeup in the BC Conservative leadership race right after the break. Welcome back. A development in the BC Conservative leadership race this week with Carrie-Lynne Findlay's campaign manager, David Denhoff, announcing publicly he's lost confidence in her, that he's leaving the campaign. He's going to endorse someone else, Carolyn Elliott, taking the candidate out at the knees, leaving Jeff, I think, maybe a campaign dead in the water for Carrie-Lynne Findlay. I don't know. Very rare that you see a campaign manager quit in the middle of a campaign like this. What did you think of this development?
Yeah, usually campaign managers are in there to win campaigns. And if they say a campaign can't be won, it's a bit of a reflection on the campaign manager's ability to organize and win. I think practically speaking, though, this shifts momentum to Carolyn Elliott, to the campaign manager endorsed. And I think just based on the position of Carrie-Lynne Findlay as a candidate, a true blue conservative, that's some momentum that will be going to Carolyn Elliott, who was positioning herself in the same way.
I'm struck by the first video of launching Carrie-Lynne Findlay's launch video attacked Carolyn Elliott. And here you have her campaign manager endorsing Carolyn Elliott. A week after Harman Bangu endorsed Carolyn Elliott, she certainly got momentum. I agree with you, Jeff. Even her opponents are endorsing her at this point. Okay, Angelo, we're not going to ask you about that because of your role with the party, but we are going to come to you for our play of the week. We're just opening it up to the plays of the week. I was imagining a theme song in my head. Do, 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 do. We don't have one. It's fine. What's your political play of the week?
I have a positive one. So we learned this week that Dana White, who's the owner of UFC, is funding treatment for Maya, who's one of the victims from the Tumbler Ridge shooting. And not only is he funding really expensive, high-class, top-of-the-line neurosurgery, but he's even painting her name across the octagon at the next UFC fight. So a very positive story of philanthropy to shine some light on a very dark moment in our recent history here in British Columbia.
Yeah, that's a good one. Jeff, your play of the week.
The kettlebell. David Eby was on stage at an event in Vancouver. We got this image of him on stage, smiling, holding up a kettlebell with a British Columbia flag on it. Except it's tiny, and I mean tiny. It looks like something out of a kid's home workout kit, the kind you'd get alongside a plastic dumbbell and one of those little hand grip spring things. Now, you see what's going on. He is trying to be like Pierre Poilievre, who went on Joe Rogan, lift a full-size kettlebell with Canadian flag, and very I lift heavy things. And this feels like a tribute version, just fun-sized. I think it was a missed opportunity. Premier should have got a yoga ball, one of those giant yoga balls, put the big BC flag on it, and that could have been his on-brand statement.
Yeah, and well,
but instead we got the mini kettlebell.
The mini kettlebell. Okay, all right. My play of the week. I dumped on the privacy commissioner last week, Michael Harvey. So I'm going to highlight a better watchdog this week. Seniors advocate Dan Levitt out with a report highlighting all the ways the government is falling behind on seniors' care. He doesn't have any of the powers in legislation that the Auditor General or the Privacy Commissioner does, and yet he is producing better reports than both of them combined at this point. This was a great one. Seniors are well served by this advocate, continuing to keep on top of a huge issue in our healthcare system and other systems. And I thought it was a pretty good report from a pretty good watchdog. Maybe we should fold some of the other offices under the Seniors Commission. It's funny because I remember when we created the Seniors Commissioner years ago, the Seniors Advocate, he didn't have any powers under law, and yet somehow he does more than the watchdogs that do have all those powers. So that's my play of the week on that one. Jeff, Angelo, thank you for being here. Everyone who's watching, thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the show in all its various forms. And we'll be back next week with all the latest in BC politics here on Political Capital. Political Capital is brought to you by Uber Canada. Learn how Uber and Mad Canada are reducing impaired driving at uber.com/homesoon.